Hey, UNW Nation, welcome to the floor of my kitchen, where there's some ridiculously good natural light and some white space behind me to not be distracting. I've got coffee here, and I thought I'd just kind of talk through a couple of topics. Maybe we'll do a series like this every couple of weeks. There's questions that I've been getting from some of you and from some of our sport coaches at Northwestern. The question of this topic is, how do I increase my athleticism in this kind of containment or stay at home or safe at home ordinance? I'm not playing my sport. We didn't get to do our spring season or a traditional or non-traditional like a spring ball season. How do we keep getting better at the game when we can't play the game? It's a fantastic question. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I hope that some of these tips will assist you as you're trying to enhance and improve your own athleticism. So I think the first thing you have to consider is, how can I play a very similar game, play my game, or play the game within a game? So a good example of this could be like, no, you can't play full court 5-on-5 basketball right now, but could you play a derivative of that? 2v2, 1v1, 3v3, 2-on-1. There's a lot of ways we can elevate just shooting hoops. It'd be no different than a sport like, let's say I'm a skill position in football. Could I just go out and play catch? Certainly. But could you vary the positions at which you're catching the ball from? Could you have someone play with the distance? Don't just run, routes or patterns, but, single hand, off ball, while turning, change the direction while you're receiving the ball. Challenge yourself with little games like if you have difficulty kind of curling or curving one way to receive the ball, pour into that position that you have deficiencies in. If you play, an individualized game that's dependent on an opponent like tennis, are there some other skillful things you can do by yourself or with someone you happen to be in isolation with to enhance those things? I think we're all pretty comfortable with the game within our game approach. This is just simply imploring you to kind of go in and press into those things. It would be more potent for you to spend time playing those types of games with a younger sibling who may not be matched with you in athleticism, or with a parent or with a neighbor, someone that you can you're in containment with, so that you don't have to stay socially distant per se. That's going to be way better than like just saying, maybe I'll just go shoot some hoops by myself. So getting that opponent in there, even if it's a younger brother or a younger sister or a dad or something, like those are going to be way more skillfully and content rich situations than going it alone. So find a training partner. It would be and play the game within the game is point number one, varying those positions and pressing into your weaknesses. Point number two would be watch film. Every athlete ought to have an intimate understanding of the problems that the game they play or the opponents they face are presenting them with. And that could be problems that you failed at in the past or maybe haven't solved as well, like past seasons or past games, and watching that film and learning. That could be watching the film of someone in your position or in your sport that you admire, right? Like learning things about the skills that you have to demonstrate in the sport from an elite level persona. Find someone that kind of has your similar skill set. When I was a collegiate thrower and throwing at Northwestern, I would always watch like 2 or 3 people who I felt like I had a similar technique to in the ring, and then watch them throughout their career and videos of them at the Olympics or World Championships or like national contests. And all of that stuff is out there. Like you can see in-depth analysis of some of your favorite athletes playing their game. Watch some of that, and then watch your own film too. I think the last thing on film, don't be afraid to watch it with teammates, don't be afraid to FaceTime or Zoom and screen share. Don't be afraid to reach out to your coaches as they can, sometimes participate with you in some of this stuff. But don't hesitate to crack open the film. There's going to be a lot of increased screen time right now. How are you spending that screen time? Just ask yourself that question and maybe consider substituting some of it for game-based film. Visualization is my third point. I know it can seem kind of kooky, mental training, what have you, but visualization is amazingly powerful. Much more powerful than many of us have initially thought. My kind of quick kind of toe-ins, if you've never done visualization before, it's sometimes helpful to write out like a brief script and then read it to yourself, just so you have something to follow through versus letting your mind wander. A great time to do this at is before bed, the 5 minutes, before 10 minutes before you're going to bed, start to kind of this visualization habit. And what I would do is I would initially start by visualizing something super positive. So maybe it's like a rewind of a very accomplished scenario. And then once you kind of have that pattern of like, I can kind of visualize the details, the feel of the ground, the tactics or the haptic environment, what it felt like, the emotions, so not just physical, but also emotional. Once you have kind of all of those granular details of something that you accomplished well or successfully, then you can take that template and go lay it into something you've never done before. An opponent that you've never faced, but you've always imagined facing. Visualize that. Visualize the successes of it. And don't be afraid. It's like your own personal, it's your own personal screen time. So like if it stops going well, because the mind does wander, I missed the shot. Well, pause, rewind. What did it feel like? How'd you step into it? What was your hand placement on the ball? Take the shot again and visualize it going through. So don't be afraid to kind of like, play shock jockey, like stop, rewind, burn, go forward. It's your visualization. But again, sometimes late in the evening, start with a script, build an accomplished or a successful task visualization first, and then start to tackle some of the things that you maybe want to accomplish or have yet to accomplish. Fourth, my second to last point, would be start a new performance-fueled habit. Many of you are at home with an excess of time. There are areas in nutrition or your food habits that might need shoring up. This is a great time to start a new habit around napping and sleep. So much of the college life doesn't always lead to being able to be kind of a top performing sleep athlete. Maybe this is a good time for you to start building some of those habits so that when we get back together on campus, you've solidified that performance fueled behavior. And then another area would be stress management. Do you have ways to kind of combat and deflect some of the stress that comes at us in this present time? There's a lot of kind of just base level melancholy. I feel it too, if I'm being transparent. And so how do you, or identify ways that you can overcome that for yourself, whether that's time outside, whether that's some level of kind of like daily reading in the Bible, or some type of stoicism, or some sort of mental practice, or maybe it's a movement practice like a run, a jog, a yoga, a stretch, a lift. Having some of those anchors in your life for combating some of that mental health, or at times when we aren't feeling 100% mentally healthy, I think that can be a super great performance-fueled habit for when we get back together in the future. And then my last thing, and it's funny because as the strength coach, you'd think I'd talk about this first, but my fifth and final thing is your physical preparation, aka doing a workout, right? So we can still obviously foster athleticism in the way we move our body. But I think we have to be smart with the way that we do that. One message I've kind of been preaching is that there's a lot of, frankly, less than ideal, I'll just say it, there's a lot of crappy bodyweight workouts being put out right now. A bajillion burpees, 100 squats, these push-up challenges. That doesn't mean don't take part in those, but don't confuse effort with accomplishment, right? Don't confuse putting in some type of work with putting in good work. So we want to be putting in good work, right? And I think that good work for an athlete starts with focusing on speed and power. Those are sometimes the first qualities that are going to detrain. I hope you're jumping. I hope you're sprinting. Coach, what should I do? Guys, I've been putting out a ton of content on stuff like this. So follow along with some of those things and then be inspired and do your own. So speed and power first, jumps and sprints. The next thing would be some type of total body strength. As an athlete, I hope you're biasing single leg, lower body single leg work in that. We've showed a lot of ways we can do that with towels and tension and tempo. Some of you have access to weights. I hope in spending the better part of the last 1.5 semesters with me over this course of this year, you have some good ideas on ways you can make movements harder based off what we've showed you in the weight room. The next thing I would prioritize would be game-based conditioning, especially for some of my fall sports. As we're getting close to our season, soccer, as we're getting close to our seasons, football, as we're getting close to our seasons, volleyball, cross country, we got to be mindful of the specific need of the sport. So don't just go out and say, well, I'm going to get like a 3-mile run in. Well, when was the last time a volleyball player needed to do a 3-mile run, right? That doesn't mean don't run, and if you enjoy running, run, but be mindful of the specific condition you're going to need to be in when your sport starts this fall. Spring sport athletes whose seasons were unfortunately canceled, and winter sport athletes like basketball or indoor track, we don't need to be as scrupulous with that specificity, but we do need to be mindful of what the game presents us versus just generally going for a run or something like that. After game-based conditioning, so again, speed, power first, strength next, game-based conditioning, I think we could then look at some capacity, hypertrophy, or muscle building work purely for tissue robustness. I've been doing some of this through like our long duration ISOs, holding a split stance for 30 to 60 seconds, holding the bottom of a push-up for 30 or 60 seconds. Some of that's going to go a long way to helping out tendon and joint health. Second to last, I should say, it would be prioritizing just low-level aerobics. Go for a hike, go for a long bike ride. Some of that's going to do fascinating work for our recovery. A lot of that's also going to do a great amount of benefit for just building a base and maintaining a base level of fitness. I use the word fitness as in like functionality, fit for task, not like as in Instagrammable fitness. So go for a hike, go for a walk, take the dog out, throw the ball around. Do this as much as you can, purely because of the changing weather and the benefits of being out in the sun. So, and then the last thing, I've mentioned it briefly, doesn't mean you can't do the 100 burpee challenge or the 20 push-up challenge, but those ought not be things we're prioritizing and confusing with effortful, purposeful work, right? At Northwestern, we try and compete with purpose. In strength and conditioning, try and emphasize this message of prepare with purpose. We desperately want to be making sure that the actions we're taking are lining up with our goals. And then whether that's a sport goal you have amongst your whole team, whether that's an individual goal you have in your own athleticism, but we got to take steps that line up with those goals versus just choose something that's workish or it looks like a lot of effort. Man, that was really hard. It got me super sweaty. We got to ask the question though, is that actually accomplishing the thing we want it to accomplish? Doesn't mean we can't participate in it. Doesn't mean we can't have a lot of fun. But what is it actually doing for us? Because how we spend our time matters. Well, speaking of time, I think mine should be up. I've ranted enough at you. Thank you for spending your time listening to all of this. I hope the content I'm putting out has been of value to you. I've been enjoying putting it out, but frankly, it's sometimes hard to stare at a camera by yourself on your kitchen floor while drinking coffee that's now cold. If you're out there, let me know. Comment, give me feedback. Let me know what's been of value, what direction you'd like to take some of this stuff. If you haven't missed Coach Gish in your life, I guess don't let me know and kindly just move along to the next piece of mind-numbing content online. So I've got the videos on UNW Strength Instagram channel as well as a playlist dedicated on YouTube. Hit me up in the DMs or in my email address, tlgish@unwsp.edu. As always, take care, be well, be safe. Yours in strength, Coach Gish signing off.